Warm greetings from the high 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. 1 year ago today, May 25th, 2020, George Floyd was murdered on a public street in Minneapolis, Minnesota by ex-police officer Derek Chauvin and three other police officers. And I will be bringing you that said information pertaining to that horrible, horrible day. Very horrible day. Minneapolis. A black man, was murdered in front of bystanders and children on a public street. And today, we remember George Floyd. This information I'm bringing to you is by CNN News if you need verification for the storyline. Memorial events, marches, and White House meeting mark 1 year since George Floyd's death. As the nation honored the life of George Floyd with memorial events and marches, Floyd's family and supporters said they have been encouraged by the progress made in the years since he was murdered by a Minneapolis police officer. From Dallas to Washington, D.C. to Minneapolis, Floyd's name is echoing across the country in recognition of a man who has become a symbol in the fight for racial equality and police reform. Today, I just felt a day of relief, Floyd's aunt Angela Harrison told CNN. The support that we have received, the love to get to this day, I'm just overwhelmed with joy and hope, and I feel like change is here. Darnella Frazier, the woman who recorded the video of Floyd's murder, told CNN Tuesday that she didn't know Floyd from a can of paint, but I knew his life mattered. I knew that he was in pain, Frazier said. I knew that he was another black man in danger with no power. Floyd's family visits with President Biden. Several members of Floyd's family, including Floyd's daughter Gianna, Gianna's mother, Roxy Washington, and his brother Floyd, were in Washington today to meet with President Joe Biden, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and other lawmakers. Floyd said the meeting with Biden and Harris was great, calling President Biden a genuine guy who always speaks from the heart. It's a pleasure just to be able to have the chance to meet with them when we had that opportunity too. We're just thankful for what's going on, and we just want this George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to be passed in the future, Floyd told reporters after the Oval Office meeting concluded. Biden released a statement saying the Floyd family has shown extraordinary courage over the last year. Although it has been 1 year since their beloved brother and father was murdered for the family, or any family experienced a profound loss, the first year can still feel like they got the news a few seconds ago, Biden wrote, and they've had to relive that pain and grief each and every time those horrific 9 minutes and 29 seconds have been replayed. The family visit comes as the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act remains stalled in the Senate, despite Biden setting an initial goal of having the legislation passed by Tuesday. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Friday that Biden wants the bill on his desk as quickly as possible. The bill includes provisions to set up a national registry of police misconduct, a ban on racial and religious profiling by law enforcement, and an overhaul of qualified immunity for police officers. L. Chris Stewart, co-lead counsel for the Floyd family, told CNN's Wolf Blitzer Tuesday that he believes the bill will be passed. I know everyone is fighting about qualified immunity, but we also have to make sure we care about the provisions that stop black people from being killed in this bill before fighting over how to sue a cop, Stewart said, adding that both Democrats and Republicans know the bill has to become law. Not only are you protecting African Americans who are being brutalized out there, but you are protecting good officers that are out there doing their job, he said. The bill protects everybody. Floyd's nephew, Brandon Williams, said Biden told the family he wants to see the bill passed, but he wants to make sure it's not a rushed bill. He showed concern, and I think genuinely he wanted to know exactly how we were doing and what he could do to support us, and he did let us know that he supports passing the bill and not a rushed bill, Williams said, adding that the president is not happy that legislation wasn't passed by Tuesday. Cedric Richmond, Biden's senior advisor, told CNN it's more important to have meaningful legislation than to meet a deadline or timeline. This country should be united behind police reform, he said on Tuesday. This is not anti-police. This is just pro-people, pro-policing. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on Tuesday recognized the Minnesotans that demanded meaningful change following Floyd's death. Those calls for action spread across the world as his memory sparked a global movement, Walz said in a statement. George Floyd did ask to be an international symbol for of the pain that Black Americans have faced for generations, and yet, in the words of his daughter, he changed the world. Memorials and events honor Floyd across the U.S. The NAACP kicked off Tuesday by holding a moment of silence for Floyd at 9:29 a.m. on its Facebook page to mark the 9 minutes and 29 seconds Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck. Sharita Tate, Floyd's cousin and president of the George Floyd Memorial Foundation, told CNN on Tuesday that the family feels uplifted by the racial reckoning, the conviction of Chauvin, and the federal indictment of Chauvin and the other three officers involved in Floyd's death. Tate said that while she had wanted to see the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed by Tuesday, the family would rather wait until Congress can pass a substantive bill that includes every provision. From my perspective, when we lost him, it was a very personal thing for us initially, and we had no idea the kind of impact it would have, Tate told CNN's Poppy Harlow and Jim Scudo. But, she said, it was almost immediately seeing the fact that people were able to have conversations across diverse lines. People were able to talk about things that we never had a conversation about before. Members of Floyd's family were also expected to attend memorial events in Minneapolis on Tuesday, according to a family spokesman. One of those events is a celebration of life, which includes a day of games, food, inflatable attractions for youth, and special performances by Grammy Award-winning artists and local talent. Minneapolis was also responding to violence on Tuesday with reports of gunfire near the place where Floyd died, now known as George Floyd Square. One person has been hospitalized with a gunshot wound. The shooting happened about 3.5 miles away from the park where the celebration of life is being held. Elsewhere, activists in Dallas organized a solidarity march and rally on Tuesday at the California-based Pacific Symphony is streaming a free concert in honor of Floyd. Hello, Wesley. Thanks for joining me. BET will also pay homage to Floyd, airing special programming that kicks off Tuesday with bars and ballads for George Floyd, featuring John Batiste, Nas, former UN Ambassador Andrew Young, singer and activist Anthony Hamilton, and Color of Change President Rashad Robinson. Several other events honoring Floyd have been held in recent days. Bridget Floyd spoke during a rally Sunday in Minneapolis where she vowed to be a voice for George Floyd and advocate for change. She was joined by civil rights attorney Ben Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton. It has been a long year. It has been a painful year, Bridget Floyd told the crowd on Sunday. It has been very frustrating for me and my family for your life to change within a blink of an eye. I still don't know why. The George Floyd Memorial Foundation is also asking supporters to honor the anniversary of Floyd's death by joining its mission to end systematic violence against Black Americans. The foundation urged supporters to use Tuesday to call their elected officials, particularly their senators, and demand that they pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, register to vote, help promote the foundation's work on social media, and donate to the foundation's programs that support the Black community. And this is by CNN News. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me. So, as I said, today marks 1 year of the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin and three other police officers, ex-police, Minneapolis City police officers. As most of you know, Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all three counts. He's awaiting sentencing, and that will be a very vainglorious day when he receives his due sentence for the death and murder of George Floyd. The other officers' trial has been put off until next year because Chauvin also faces civil rights charge for violating his civil rights, and so are the other three officers, and that is why that trial of those said officers has been put off until next year. I'm praying for justice for all four parties because those three officers, ex-officers, aided Derek Chauvin. Not one spoke up, not one attempted to tell Chauvin to get his knee off of George Floyd's neck. And that was a terrible way for a human being to die, whether you are Black, white, Indian, Jewish, Muslim, does not matter. Short, tall, fat, skinny, does not matter. Spectators watched on a public street alongside children, a Black man being murdered in the early evening before dark. And as I state, a terrible way to leave the world, begging for your life, and no one cared enough to say, that's enough, pull him up. My condolences to the Floyd family, his daughter, brothers, sisters, family members. Just a terrible tragedy in American history to watch an African-American man plead for his life on a public street, on the ground, with no way to get up, no one to aid him. And the people who were hired to serve our great nation and police our streets were the same ones who killed this man with no regard for his life, the citizens' lives, the viewers, and the people who ended up watching the said death and murder via Facebook. We're in terrible times. And I pray for this policing act, and I pray that it will do some good in the world. And I pray that someone out there will take notice to the act and realize that George Floyd mattered. Black people matter. Black lives matter. And yes, all lives matter. That we're not just here for play. That we are entitled to live and walk amongst the earth freely, so long as we are not bothering anyone, causing any problems. We're entitled to that right. And even if indeed we are suspected of doing something felonious, that we're still treated with respect until the situation is resolved in a peaceful manner. Amen. Thank you all for joining me. This is a very short live. As I state, this is a memoriam for the late George Floyd, who is no longer with us. He lost his life a year ago today, May 25th, 2020, by 4 police officers, ex-police officers, the Minneapolis Police Department. One has been found guilty on all said charges and also facing civil rights violations against George Floyd. And the other officers will also be facing those said charges. And as I state, their court date has been put off until next year due to the new charge of violating George Floyd's civil rights. Thank you all for joining me. I'm not going to stay on long, but this was the said information by CNN if you need a source. And just know that the world is a cruel place, that it doesn't matter who you are. You don't know the day that you're going to leave here. And it is a sad day when a person was sworn in to uphold the law and serve the community would be the same person to snuff you out. And it happens every day, and it happens every day in the African-American community. And it is a cruel way to leave, to be either knee to the neck, choked by an officer, or killed by a firearm, gunned down by an officer. He or she was sworn in to do diligent, serve the people, the public. But some have decided that they want to take the law into their own hands and exact their own cruel and unusual punishment against the Black man and woman. No one said it would be fair, but this has to stop. This inequality, racial profiling, assuming the worst, getting gun happy because you have been afforded the opportunity to tote a gun with a badge. Once again, my condolences to the Floyd family, his daughter. I pray for peace in the valley. But as I stated on my community post, nothing can change until someone decides that he or she has a problem. And you cannot change what you don't acknowledge or what you won't acknowledge. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129, Cash App. All super chats are welcome during the lives. I thank you all for your time. May God keep you and bless you this week on your way and your journey. Be safe out there. And just remember that you never know where you're going to be when trouble can arise and be at your feet. So I pray for you. I pray for all citizens because I am George Floyd. And I pray to God every day when I leave my home that I do not end up in George Floyd's shoes. Not now, not never. Amen. This is Everyday Shenanigans.